Hey man, there's a move more powerful than slamming a door, more impactful than ghosting, more hypnotic than pleading or proving. It's called emotional pullback, and it's not about disappearing, it's about staying just enough to be noticed, yet distant enough to be missed. It's the quiet confidence of a man who doesn't chase validation, a man who knows his worth, and knows that his absence speaks louder than his presence ever could. She's used to men clinging, explaining, trying to fix things with words, but when you stop doing what every other man does, when you stop explaining, stop pursuing, stop giving her emotional certainty, she feels the shift. It's like emotional gravity reversing. Suddenly you become the one she's drawn to, not because you said anything, but because you didn't. That silence, that subtle withdrawal, becomes a loud echo in her mind. And here's the trick. You didn't leave. You're still there. You still respond. You're still present, physically, but emotionally, you've stepped back into your own world. No arguments, no drama, just presence with boundaries. That's when she starts to wonder, why does it feel like I'm losing him, even though he's still right here? That's how you make her chase the connection again. That's the power of leaving without leaving. And today, we're diving deep into the psychology of that move, how to do it, why it works, and how to use emotional pullback to make her feel your absence without ever needing to walk away. Ready? Let's go all in. You've probably heard that the most powerful men in relationships are the ones who master presence, but what's even more powerful is the intentional absence of presence. When you start pulling back emotionally, not in anger or resentment, but in stillness and calm, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability triggers the emotional loop that makes her think about you more often than she wants to admit. It's not about ignoring her, it's about letting her feel the weight of your attention no longer being guaranteed. Think about this. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you no longer seek to be understood every time there's tension, you change the game. Most men try to fix. High-value men withdraw their emotional availability and let her lean into the discomfort. That discomfort is where realization begins. When she's used to you always being the one to patch things up, your silence becomes louder than any argument you could have had. You're not leaving the relationship, you're just shifting your energy back to yourself. That's what emotional pullback is. It's not punishment, it's not manipulation, it's emotional recalibration. You're saying without saying, you don't get to feel my warmth for free anymore. You're not cruel, you're composed. And that contrast is what shakes her reality. Women notice the shift immediately, even if they don't talk about it. They feel it. When she messages you and your replies slow down, not cold, not rude, just minimal, that space you create makes her nervous. She'll replay your last interaction. She'll scroll through old conversations. She'll talk to her friends, because suddenly, you're not reacting the way she expected, and that confusion breeds attraction. The absence of your emotional availability triggers a chase. Emotional pullback doesn't mean you stop loving or caring. It means you start loving yourself enough not to overextend. You remove the cushion, you stop being the safety net, and she starts to realize the value you brought to her emotional stability. She'll feel that vacuum and wonder, did I do something wrong? Is he over me? Why isn't he chasing like before? Those questions lead her to chase clarity, and often that means chasing you. When a woman feels a man's presence consistently, she settles. But when that presence starts to fade without warning, she becomes alert. Her senses heighten. She starts looking for clues, and in doing so, she inadvertently becomes more invested. The unpredictability is not about games, it's about breaking patterns. And broken patterns make the brain pay attention. See, when you stop pouring emotion into every interaction, you let her feel her own. You stop explaining how much you care and let her wonder if you still do. That silence creates depth, and that depth pulls her in more than validation ever could. A woman doesn't fall for the man who tries harder. She falls for the man who makes her feel more, and often feeling more starts with feeling his absence. Pulling back emotionally isn't something you announce, it's something you embody. You show up less emotionally, you reveal less. You answer, but you don't elaborate. You listen, but you don't console every insecurity. And when you do that calmly, not bitterly, she starts to feel the shift. She feels like she's losing something, but can't figure out what. That confusion is what drives the emotional hook deeper. Most men fear emotional pullback because they think it'll make her walk away. But the truth, if she walks away when you pull back, she was never emotionally invested to begin with. What pullback does is test her investment. It's a mirror. A woman who truly values you will lean in. She'll reach out. She'll initiate more. And if she doesn't, you've just avoided a long road of one-sided effort. And here's the truth. Most won't say emotional pullback protects your masculine core, because the moment you start chasing emotional reassurance, you start losing respect. And when respect goes, attraction dies slowly. You must train yourself to be comfortable with the unknown, to sit in the silence, to trust that your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. Pullback also resets her perception of you. It creates contrast. If you were always available, always expressive, always checking in, your pullback jolts her emotional system. Suddenly, she's not sure how you feel, and uncertainty is fuel. It makes her text more, ask more, care more, because she feels a subtle loss she can't define. That undefined loss is power. But remember, emotional pullback only works if it's rooted in calm detachment, not emotional retaliation. If you pull back with anger, it becomes a tantrum. If you pull back with silence and strength, it becomes a magnet. Your calmness forces her to self-reflect. And that self-reflection is what changes the dynamic. You also need to be okay with her not reacting right away. Sometimes, the emotional pullback takes time to sink in. She might act unfazed for a few days, but slowly her texts become more curious. Her tone shifts. She sends random updates. She checks in more. All signs she's sensing your shift and doesn't know how to respond to it. And that means it's working. This is the time you double down on your purpose. Focus on your health, your vision, your peace. The more centered you become, the more she feels the gravity of your emotional withdrawal. She realizes your energy wasn't just attention, it was value. And value never chases. Value waits. Value attracts. Emotional pullback is a silent storm. It doesn't cause immediate chaos, but over time, it reshapes everything. It forces her to step into your world instead of always pulling you into hers. And once she's in your world again, she treats it differently because she remembers what it felt like to almost lose it. She may ask if everything is okay. She might test you with indirect questions. Stay grounded. Respond, don't react. Let her feel you're still there, but not fully available. That balance between presence and absence is what builds emotional depth. It's what keeps her thinking about you at night. And when she comes back around, because she will, you don't return to your old habits. You don't overgive again. You let her earn access to your emotional world, slowly. That way she values it, she respects it, and most importantly, she fears losing it again. That's the power of emotional pullback, man. You don't have to walk away. You just have to feel like you could. You don't have to say much. You just have to be still. And in that stillness, she feels everything. Here's the thing. When you emotionally pull back, you're creating scarcity. And scarcity breeds value. It's basic psychology. When something is less available, we start to want it more. But this only works when the thing becoming scarce is actually valuable. That's why your focus now must shift to becoming the man whose emotional presence is a privilege, not a given. She starts replaying conversations, rereading messages. She wonders if she said something wrong. And even if her ego won't let her reach out first, she's already thinking about you more. She's imagining you pulling away emotionally, imagining you no longer needing her approval, and that unsettles her, because it means she's no longer in control of your emotions, and that's what makes her chase. Most men try to talk their way into attraction, but the strongest men make her feel it, without saying a word. You're not texting paragraphs, you're not explaining your vibe, you're just calmly responding when needed, showing interest only when it's reciprocated, and letting silence work its magic. That restraint, that's the real flex. Now she's watching your stories, liking old posts, sending casual texts like, "Hey, I saw something that reminded me of you." These are not random, these are subtle bids for your energy again. But here's the test. Do you immediately fall back into old patterns and reward that attention too easily, or do you stay grounded and let her earn your full presence again? When she starts to feel you're drifting away emotionally, she doesn't just feel lonely, she feels challenged. Her internal story begins to shift from "he wants me" to "wait, does he still want me?" And that is when attraction spikes, because the mind is addicted to unresolved emotional tension. The more uncertain she is about where she stands with you, the more emotional bandwidth she gives to figuring it out. This is what creates obsession, man. Not manipulation, but mystery. Emotional pullback makes you mysterious because it leaves questions unanswered. You're not cold, you're not ghosting, but you're no longer emotionally predictable. That emotional ambiguity lingers in her thoughts. It follows her into her daily routines. And when a woman starts thinking about you, that often you've already won. But there's something even deeper happening beneath the surface. Emotional pullback reclaims your emotional sovereignty. You're no longer handing her the keys to your mood. You're no longer waiting for her validation to feel valuable. And that shift from needing to offering is what makes you incredibly attractive. Let's talk about the power of your energy. When you're emotionally engaged, women can feel it, even through a screen. So when you pull back, she feels that shift in energy too. And energy is the most honest communicator. If your vibe is calm, grounded, and unfazed, she senses that you're not just playing a game. You've truly stepped into your masculine stillness. Stillness is power. Stillness creates tension. And tension is the glue of emotional intensity. Don't rush to resolve it. Let it build. Let her sit in the unknown. Let her wonder if she still has access to your heart. That wondering is what makes her reach out. Flirt harder, dress better, talk sweeter, not because you told her to, but because she feels the need to win back your emotional presence. This phase isn't about waiting with folded arms. It's about reinvesting in yourself. While she's in her head thinking about you, you're in your life building, growing, thriving. The gap widens, and that gap builds desire. You're no longer orbiting around her emotional needs. You've become the sun in your own solar system again, and she starts to notice the gravity. And here's the curveball. When you do speak, when you do give her attention again, do it from a place of calm power, not eagerness. Show that you've been just as fine without the emotional high. That tells her you're not just someone who can walk away physically, but emotionally too. That's the kind of man a woman doesn't forget. The most magnetic men are not the loudest. They're the ones whose energy lingers long after they leave. Emotional pullback creates that effect. She starts to feel your silence more than she ever felt your words. She starts to seek your approval without even realizing it. Because suddenly, the game changed, and she didn't even notice when it happened. She'll start sending longer messages, asking deeper questions, bringing up old memories. All subtle ways of saying, do I still matter to you? And now the power dynamic has shifted. She's not pulling away, you are, but with grace, with calm, with silence. That's the art of leaving without leaving. You never walked out, but your emotional absence was enough to shake her. And when she finally says something like, you felt distant lately, you smile. Not because you're playing with her, but because you know she finally noticed the value of something she once took for granted. Your emotional presence, your calm attention, your quiet loyalty. She sees now that it wasn't endless, it was earned. This is where the real magic happens, man. When you no longer seek to be wanted, but become wanted because you're no longer seeking, that's when you know your emotional pullback worked. That's when you know she's not just missing you, she's craving you.